What's up, ego hackers? This is episode 10 of the Hypocrisy series of the C.S. Joseph podcast, premium edition. I'm your host, C.S. Joseph, obviously. Welcome. Today we're going to be discussing my supervisor type, one of my most favorite types, probably my favorite type. I don't know if it is my favorite type, but pretty damn close, and that's the ISTP. ISTPs are amazing, so capable, so intelligent. They can unobligate themselves out of any situation. They're extremely tactical. And that's one of the best parts about how tactical they are. Even though oftentimes they imagine themselves strategic, but they're not. They're not strategic at all. And that's one of the things that really bothers me about ISTPs is that they really think that they can do everything. But they need to realize that they're still an SP. They still have the risk or the burden of realizing that their most compatible types are still SJs who are affiliative, which means even these pragmatic ISTPs, are still dependent. As independent as they like to see themselves, they are still dependent on others. They can't do everything themselves. And that's one of the things, like, a lot of people just don't realize. They really, really don't realize that. And it's just so fascinating to me how they really think that they can do everything in this life by themselves. You know, I'm looking at a lot of dating profiles recently on Bumble and Hinge, and it's just so sad to see how many ISTP dog moms, childless or whatever, in their late 30s, thinking that they're still going to be a mother or something. And I'm like, no, you're just super masculine and you have no idea how to even be feminine, but then you expect men to like come up to you. I'm sure men would be happy to have a fling with you. I mean, honestly, you're nothing more than side action at worst, and then at best, you're just a mistress at this point because you don't really have much to offer. And that's the thing, like, a lot of ISTPs are just not even aware of the consequences of their actions. And then because of that, they end up making irresponsible decisions, and then they make everybody else in their life clean up after them, whether or not they're aware of it or not, whether or not they're intending it or not. There's always that consequence of everybody else having to clean up after the ISTP on a consistent basis, even though they're the ones who constantly say, if you want something done right, do it yourself. And that's just ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. I don't think most people are even aware of how ridiculous it is, because I just see them and I'm like, you guys are the biggest hypocrites of them all. You know, like, I almost said, like, virtue and vice, like, way back in the day for season 7, I almost said that hypocrisy itself was their vice, because in my opinion, there's no one more hypocritical than an ISTP out of the 16 types. I literally went that far with it. You know, and I've oftentimes been the victim of ISTP hypocrisy throughout my life without even knowing it. And that's been a real shame for me. That's been a real shame. But it's also taught me some things. And it's funny how the hypocrisy of an ISTP, like, it just comes out with their ENFJ subconscious, and they're actually, like, going out of their way to teach people lessons, even with their own hypocrisy, because they really, really struggle with learning from their own mistakes. And it's so funny because they expect everybody else to learn from their own mistakes, but they themselves won't. They really won't. They won't learn from their own mistakes. And that's their first hypocrisy. They have a really hard time learning from their own mistakes, especially if their SI critic is very senile, and, like, it's just critical. It's, like, very cynical for the sake of being cynical of their own experience, because that's not real. My experience is not as real as right now. The thing is that even they themselves will have to admit that they don't actually truly live in the present. And that's a huge problem for them. A huge problem. And it's just so funny to me. It's absolutely hilarious to me. They are hilarious to me. They are so capable. They're so amazing in so many ways. And like, me and them jive so naturally. But actually getting them to listen, oh my God. And then they have the if you want something done right, do it yourself thing. But they can't even rely on their own experience to learn from their own mistakes. And they have to have somebody else around them to learn mistakes off of. But then they learn as they get older and develop their SI critic, they start paying more attention to themselves and realize that they actually can learn from their own mistakes, which is amazing when it happens. But in this society, it's extremely rare, very rare. And oftentimes, I don't think ISTPs are even aware of how little they actually learn from their mistakes in Western society because of how enabled and how pampered they are as people, especially ISTP women. You know, like, I get that they have the struggle of being a masculine woman, but the thing is that's what culture is looking for out of women these days. They want to make women more masculine, and that doesn't really bode well for them. It really doesn't. Not so much. Not properly. So that's one thing, like, they really struggle with learning from their own mistakes. And I said the story about, like, my boss one time, how, like, I recorded everything that he forgot and then shoved it in his face, and he got super pissed. But he got pissed mostly because he couldn't deny that it wasn't true, because it was. And I'm glad that at least he admitted that later. It really meant a lot to me that he admitted that, okay, yeah, I actually am forgetful. It's so hard to get them to admit that. And then once he did admit it, he started changing for the better. You know, and that's the thing. You know, you got to remember that ISTPs are these people who, they're still SPs, right? And SJs are the people who are most compatible with them. And SJs have this thing where they're just relentless. SJs even, like, nag people. And honestly, like, I'm not down for nagging, but guess what? ISTPs sometimes need someone to nag them constantly, to get that SI critic to just wake up so they actually start learning from their own mistakes. And I don't think and as annoying as that is, and as much as an ISTP would get ragey over that, because it's like, oh, you're taking my choice away because you're nagging me, you're not letting me get away from you. It's like, well, why should I let you get away from me at all? You won't even listen. I mean, they have that ENFJ subconscious thing of, like, they expect everyone else to listen to them, but they won't listen to anybody. Mostly because the ISTP just stupid zones everybody, usually by default, and especially when they're younger. And that's the most annoying thing in the world. And that's not something I want for the world. ISTPs should be better. They should be amazing leaders. You know, kind of like Rand Paul. He's an ISTP, but he's also a congressman. At least there's an ISTP who's pragmatic, who's in Congress, willing to do what it takes to prove a point. Not that I support him. I think all of Congress is a bunch of hacks, honestly. Insider trading criminals is my very low opinion of Congress. But at least Rand Paul's someone who's actually pragmatic and practical, that can actually offer practical solutions when it comes to the problems being engaged with in Congress. You know, a lot of people just aren't even aware of that. It might be a huge problem. So that's just one thing, like, that's like the basic hypocrisy to watch out for. It's just, you got to call out ISTPs when they're not learning from their mistakes. And this is actually what will eventually help them learn to be responsible. And then eventually they will. Being responsible is just something that they have to learn. But that leads into their next hypocrisy. If you remember in the ESTJ episode, we talked about how ESTJs sometimes will inhibit the growth of other people so that the ESTJ doesn't feel any pressure about having to grow themselves. And that could be a serious problem. Serious problem. That's what ESTJs do, but how do ISTPs do it? They have this thing, it's like, hey, you know, if everyone else is as bad as me, then I don't have to improve. And that's one of the most annoying things. But yeah, like, ISTPs do that consistently. They really just, like, they will always use the excuse of other people's bad behavior to behave badly themselves. And the thing is that, like, hey, if I can reduce everyone down to my level, and then I don't ever have to improve. I don't have to be better. And that's one of the things about them. And I think in general, ISTPs don't actually intend to do that. But, you know, that's yet another hypocrisy, because, like, ISTPs constantly think that intentions and actions are the exact same thing. And they're really not. They're not the same thing, but they assume it's the same thing because of their extrovert intuition trickster. So then they get super judgmental of other people. This is one of the reasons why they stupid zone people, just assume that other people are, they just assume that other people are not going to be improving, or they just assume other people are stupid, I guess. I guess that's the most simplest way to put it, the most practical way to put it. They just assume other people are stupid because they are also assuming that all actions and intentions are the same. So they see how people are acting around them with their extroverted sensing parent. That happens all the time. But because of their extrovert intuition trickster, they have no idea why people are acting the way that they're behaving. They have no idea what the intention is behind the way people are acting. So when they see that someone is acting in a way that they themselves won't act in because of their SI critic, especially when it's young and dumb and cynical in its youth, continues to be a problem. And that's just ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous to me how they do that constantly. Because here's the thing, like I've heard ISTPs always say, like, don't do anything I won't do. That's like their catchphrase. That's when you know, like, okay, there's actually a problem with this ISTP, because the ISTP is still assuming that actions and intentions are the exact same thing. And they end up misjudging people poorly, judging people stupid even, because they're just assuming that person has to be stupid, because why else would they act that way? Because if I was acting that way, it would be because I wanted to do X, Y, Z. When the reality of the situation is, it has nothing to do with that, because they don't know why people are acting the way that they're reacting. They only know what their reaction is going to be to other people's behavior because of SC parent, or at least teenager in its youth. And that's really, it just continues to be this huge source of frustration for me. Huge source of frustration. And I just don't think people are really aware of, of this dichotomy that ISTPs do to people consistently. And I find it unconscionable. I really find their misjudgments towards other people insanely unconscionable. It's also completely unfair. I find it very unfair that they get the ability, or they think that they have the ability to misjudge people on a regular basis, on a daily basis, misjudge people, as someone who's being, stupid, basically, judging people stupid because of how they're acting, when they're actually just making an assumption about that person. And that assumption is, it's really annoying. I can't believe it. Like, just how dumb that is. It really bothers me because of that assumption and what they're doing. Like, how can they treat people that way? How can they actually misjudge them, because of that assumption? And it takes them their entire life, folks. It really takes an ISTP their entire life to actually bumble in and discover the why behind what people do. Because from their point of view, every single decision that an ISTP makes is intentional. It's intentional every time. Their NI child is just like, I only act a certain way because I want to. That must be how everybody else behaves too, right? Wrong. That's not accurate. It's not accurate at all. In fact, it's actually just insanely annoying. No one wants that. No one wants to deal with that. No one cares. Like, it's really frustrating. And I find that uniquely frustrating about ISTPs. It's like, hey, I'm going to misjudge everybody because I believe that intention and action are equivalent, but they're really, really not. And it's so funny just to watch their super ego type, try to refine them. INFPs try to, as delusional as INFPs can get, at least go out of their way to explain the concept of why. Because ISTPs, as much as they think that they understand the cause and effect, they really actually don't. because they're only aware of their own cause, and they can only see the immediate effect of their own cause. And then they also see the effects or actions that other people make, and other people's history with actions and history with decision making and their life experience, but they never actually know why. But for some reason, they think it's okay to judge everybody else. It's always good to just sit down and enjoy a cigar sometimes, and just kind of sit back and relax. I figured by me doing so would help you ISTPs watching this relax. Just so you can SE and mirror off of me. And that's the thing, you can kind of see how all these little hypocrisies of theirs actually just kind of run together and actually create a lot of negative consequences for them and other people. And it's not that ISTPs are intending on being shallow. It's just that they end up becoming shallow. They end up acting shallow, whether or not they're aware of it or not, because they're really not. They're not aware that they're acting shallow. But because they're not bothering to look at the why, the true cause, because they're only aware of their own cause, that, they just look at other people and be like, well, that's not something I would want to do, so they stupid, or they're useless. That's another thing. And it just causes the ISTP to be insanely judgmental, and then it just feeds their pride deadly sin. And no one wants that. Literally, nobody wants that in their life. And folks, when you're confronting ISTPs who behave this way, you really got to get in their face. You have to, because that's all an ISTP understands. And honestly, their SE teenager, because it's not a parent yet, it's not developed enough, you may even have to go out of your way to reject the ISTP, and preferably reject them in a very public manner. This is why, INFPs, for example, or NFPs, they like to grandstand. And when they're grandstanding, they like to grandstand their rejection. These are the people who announce that they're leaving the CSJ community, for example. And then you have the other ENFPs. I got to give a shout out to my ENFP friend in Chicago. He likes to post on the Facebook group, "This is not an airport. You don't have to announce your departure." But the reason why people are announcing their departure, it's because they are publicly shaming the ISTP. Because they have to. Because the ISTP's FI demon is so deep. It's so deep inside of their head that they're just going to shrug it off and be like, yeah, I don't care. I really don't care. And the only way to get an ISTP to care is to make sure that everyone around them, make sure that they understand that everyone around them does not accept them, does not accept their behavior, does not accept who they are, does not accept how they're acting. And that's the thing. Most people don't even know that. Most people don't even realize, that that's how they work, because, oh, they're so helpful, or, oh, they're so smart. Yeah, there's a lot of benefits to befriending an ISTP, but at the end of the day, they're still getting over that TE nemesis stupid zoning judgment. It's they themselves who are putting them in that position. And then if you think about it, they're the ones who are actually being stupid, because they're the ones who are misjudging everybody, because they're making that assumption that actions and intentions are the same thing. And that just, it's one of the worst hypocrisies ever. I know I'm beating a dead horse right now, but oh my God, it's the most annoying thing in the world. Do you know what's one of the best things in the world? Is meeting an ISTP who actually listens. Who actually listens. You know how hard it is to get an ISTP to listen, especially to TI parent? Wow. I've had ISTPs tell me, including my former boss, tell me about how much they know people, how much they know how everything really works, because they're very mechanical and they take pride, because they're deadly sin of pride, in knowing how everything works. But they really don't understand consequences. And working for an ISTP, I could see lots of bad things happening that I was trying to prevent, but because he didn't see those bad things happening, he would then accuse me of not making proper things the priority. only for that to blow up in his face later, and I had to be the guy to come in and rescue his ass and make sure that he didn't lose his job. And I was doing that out of a sense of loyalty to him. Why? Well, because he was mentoring me on certain things, which I really appreciated. So I'd also watch his back consistently. And that, quite frankly, is what ISTPs really want. They want people that they teach to watch their back. But the thing is that they could at least, bother to engage in some humility. That would be nice. Why can't we have ISTP humility? Because they literally think they're better. It's their FI demon. Their FI demon literally thinks they're better than everybody else. Whether or not they're willing to admit it or not. They really think that they're better than everyone else. Or at least, as we said previously, they think they don't have to be better because it's like, well, everyone else is doing it. Everyone else is bad. So I get to be bad too. I don't have to improve in my life because everybody else is bad. And it's just like, wow, you're ridiculous. And you think that that people are just going to accept you by default? You think that people are going to cater to your FE inferior and like you when you do that to people? No. No one's actually going to like you. No one is going to accept you. No one is going to stick around for that. No one wants that, at all. And that's the thing, folks. That's really the thing. You just gotta understand, they're not perfect. And it's so funny, I have met ISTPs who actually think they're perfect. And most of those ISTPs that actually think they're perfect and think they're acting perfect, they're actually women, oddly enough. But then I look at them and I'm like, yeah, but you don't even have a family. You live alone with your dog. And then you want to post on your dating profiles that the quickest way to my heart is to take me on a trail or go take me on a trip or this or that. And I'm like, no, bitch. How about you take me on a trip? How about you show me your worth, FI demon? Starting to be a connoisseur of tobacco. Since tobacco, while it's a stimulant, it puts me into my subconscious. And I don't smoke every day, but it puts me in my subconscious and it just helps me chill out, helps me relax. Oddly enough, sometimes it stimulates people and keeps them going. But for me, now if an ISTP was smoking this, they'd feel like, hey, I'm gonna teach more because it's putting me in my subconscious. But this helps me chill out. So there's other hypocrisies that they have. I mean, we talked about stupid zoning and why it happens. Here's another thing, though. We talked about Jeff Lowe and how he's a con artist. And it really just comes from FI demon entitlement. Because eventually, ISTPs will get to the point where, oh, I am so helpful and I can improve so many people, and the higher volume of people in my life that I can improve, that means by default that I'm useful. I'm the most useful person here. So then they start acting like everybody owes them something. Everybody owes them special treatment. That's another hypocrisy. So when they get so FI demon entitled as a result of their TI hero pride that they can't let go of, they really struggle letting go of, that they expect special treatment from other people eventually in their life, especially the people that are closest to them, especially to the people that they have taught, because it's their FI demon who has this perspective. Because FI it's the investment function. It's all about investing. And they're like, hey, if I've invested in you, that means you owe me. And they oftentimes expect everyone else's attention, and they think that everyone owes them attention, and that everyone has to stop what they're doing and give them that attention. Gosh, it's so annoying. And it's wrong. It's not right at all. It's completely false. It's bullshit. It's complete bullshit. Nobody actually owes them anything. And their NI child needs to understand that the NI child is what is actually making the choice. They are making the choice to help other people. And they shouldn't be so transactional in helping other people. They shouldn't always expect something in return. And this is how ISTPs covert contract people. It's all about attention. It's all about whether or not people are actually loyal enough for that. And I can't stand it. I really can't stand that. Is that dog still here? This is my new favorite. Wow. So, you got to make sure that, like, if ever an ISTP is getting in your face and demanding your attention, you got to think about it like, okay, wait a minute. What does this ISTP think in terms of, like, what I owe them? What does he or she actually think I owe them? You know, especially since, like, for example, like in the context of sexual relationships, and it's an ISTP woman, men don't really get much out of relationships. So why does she get to think that, like, me as a man, that, like, I owe her? Because I don't owe her anything. Women may control access to sex and sexuality, but I control access to my commitment and my resources, and whether or not I'm going to stick around. And for her to tell me, and this is an actual experience that I had, for her to tell me that I owe her loyalty because we fuck, that's really disgusting. And if you actually think about it, that means she's being a whore, if you think about it. What a very transactional, prostitutional way to live one's life. And it's not just in the context of a relationship. Oh no. It's not just in the context of a relationship. It really actually ends up being an issue in every single place in their life. That whole you owe me attitude, this hypocrisy, like, I've seen ISTPs get fired from it. I've seen them have people reject them or break up with them because they have this you owe me mentality. And I just absolutely can't deal with it. I've even experienced it from INFJs sometimes, but not as bad with ISTPs. And it's so funny when you put an INFJ and an ISTP in the same room, because they are technically conflict types. And them being conflict types, well, it's just hilarious, because you just see the hypocrisy going back and forth like a hot potato between the both of them, you know. And ISTPs get so frustrated at INFJs because it's like, you don't even stick around, you don't even give me attention. Well, guess what? INFJs don't even have enough attention span for themselves. And it's like the ISTP continues to project their ESTJ shadow, their golden pair, their affection pair, and they are demanding affection from other people by expecting everybody else to behave like an ISTP at that moment. And that's ridiculous to me. That's completely ridiculous to me. Like, where do they get off? You know, I mean, you could just see that. You could see that in Jack Dorsey's eyes. Like, when he's walking around at Twitter, we just typed him on famous people in the last stream, the public stream that we did. Sometimes we do typing famous people publicly because there's a lot of names that members have asked for, but that we never get to them. And sometimes we take those leftover names and we just put them on a list, and then, you know, I'll just do a public stream, an extra public stream per month, just to make sure that their names get in. Because sometimes I feel bad that they're not able to get all of their names in, you know, or they get to their names too late, you know. And this is just Effie Child. This is why I just do the stream. It's just pure Effie Child, because I love the audience and I'm caring about the CSJ community, and I just want to make sure that all the paying members, you know, get the opportunity to get their names in, you know. But the thing is, though, is that, like, there's probably maybe 1 or 2 ISTPs in my whole life, maybe three, that don't treat me that way, that don't treat me as if I owe them something. And that means so much to me. One of them is my cousin Mike. And it's funny, my cousin Mike posts regularly in the ISTP group on Facebook. And many people have asked him, hey, are you actually Chase's cousin? Are you the guy he talks about in his videos? He's like, yep, that's me. He's honest about it. That is one good thing about ISTPs, is that they'll be honest with you. Here's another hypocrisy. But they're seldom honest with themselves. And why would they be honest with themselves? Because if they're actually honest with themselves all the time, and if they actually audibly admit that they've done something wrong, then they have to change at that moment. But hey, if I don't have to admit that I did anything wrong, that means I don't have to change. I don't have to take responsibility. This is why ISTP men, this is one of the worst parts about ISTP men, they just extend their boyhood into their 40s or even their 50s, and they're just incapable of taking responsibility. So they spend their life running away from responsibility. It's not that they're running away from their feelings, they're just running away from responsibility. They're running away from their SI critic, because it's like, I see everyone else being irresponsible. Why do I have to be irresponsible? Why do I have to be irresponsible if everyone else is irresponsible? And it just really gets in the way of their personal growth as a person. And I don't need someone like that in my life. Like, the reality of the situation is, when it comes to my cousin Mike, like, I owe him so much about my life. I owe him my work ethic. I owe him my manhood. I owe him so much. And out of every single human being on the planet, I respect him the most, to the point where if he calls me, I stop what I'm doing and I answer the phone. I drop it. And I do owe him. But here's the difference. He never comes to collect. And that is an ISTP of great character, because he never comes to collect. And I always just give to him because he's given me so much. When I was homeless, he gave me some work so I could get some money to feed my family. He also invested in a business that I ran into the ground. And he took the financial hit. Yeah, I feel guilty about that failure. But from his point of view, it was just a big lesson. It was a lesson that he was trying to teach me. And it was a lesson I needed to learn. A lesson, that like I've taken with me in any other aspect of my life, like when I conduct business or even conduct my family. And, even though he's an ISTP who is interest-based, he's really gone out of his way to give for the sake of giving. And that is just not common amongst ISTPs, especially solipsistic women, which all women are solipsistic, especially ISTP women. You don't really see ISTP women, especially in today's day and age, give for the sake of giving. And it's because they hold on to their NI child freedom for so long. Then that they end up, extending their girlhood. They don't even know how to be feminine. They just don't. Because you can always tell when a woman is not feminine, when she's not willing to give up her life for her man, when she's not willing to put her man as number one in her life, where she's not able to realize that, hey, I'm not living my life anymore. I'm actually living his life, right? And that is the worst part. And I see that so common amongst ISTP women. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And it's disgusting when the men do it too, because what the men do is that they never actually commit to anything. And then they wake up when they're 50 years old and literally have nothing. They have nothing, no family, no legacy, nothing. Because the only thing important to them is their freedom. And their legacy is nothing compared to their freedom, because their NI child is optimistic. But then all of a sudden, their SE parent will grow because their brain will force them to, their mind will force them, and it usually happens in a midlife crisis, where their brain's like, okay, well, what exactly is your legacy? And Jack Dorsey recently, he gave up his so-called legacy at Twitter. And oftentimes, just the way that he behaves, he just expects everybody on his social media platform to behave in a certain way. Because again, he can't see, and he literally thinks that social network owes him. He literally thinks that they owe him. And they don't. No one owes him shit. Nobody owes him shit. And that's one of the things I really respect about my cousin Mike, is that he knows that no one really owes him at the end of the day. That he is the one that made the choice to give to me, to help me in areas. Like, I couldn't even be masculine without him. I was just a scared, feminine little boy. But I learned personal responsibility from him. And because of that, guess what? It caused him to become even more responsible. And I'm so grateful. And I'm so thankful for him. He really is what family should be, idealistically speaking. And that's why I venerate him. I venerate him so much, and I appreciate that so much. And ISTPs, like, if you're watching this, you want to have that same type of veneration, then stop being transactional. Seriously, stop being transactional. That is what is inhibiting you. The hypocrisy of the transaction. You have to get to a point where you can use your ESTJ shadow to actually give for the sake of giving, because it's the only systematic side you have in your heads. All the other sides of your mind are all interest-based. So you're constantly looking at, okay, is this a win-win or not? Because even ISTPs can be depraved with their INFP and entitled with their INFP demon. They're doing it consistently. But Mike's not like that. He's not like that. And I think you ISTPs should actually really learn from his example. I really think you all should learn from his example. So yeah, I mean, like, they get pretty forgetful. They'll always think that they remember everything. You just have to remind them that their memory is just short term, and that they can remember what other people do really well, but they never really remember what they themselves do. Again, it's not learning from their mistakes and being a consistent issue on a consistent basis. That's a serious problem. And I wish people would understand, the consequences. I wish they would understand the consequences more accurately. But they take their whole life understanding consequences. And that's the thing. Like, unless you're willing to react negatively to an ISTP and blow up on them with full force, they're never going to learn their lesson. Because if you're just going to shrug it off and just kind of move on because you feel that you owe them, they're never going to change, and they're going to continue to be abusive. Okay? That's the problem. They can be really abusive that way. And that's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate how abusive they can be because of that. And the abuse comes out because they think you owe them something. Just like Jeff Lowe thought that, people owed him, and he took Tiger King's zoo out from under him, basically. And because he used his, TE, he stupid zoned Joe Exotic, and then because he used his ESTJ to work the system to his advantage, because that's what they do, because they're so interest-based, and he felt like that Joe Exotic owed him. Jeff Lowe took everything out from under Joe Exotic and had a hand in Joe Exotic's downfall. And I'm not saying Joe Exotic is a good person. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that Joe Exotic got screwed. Got completely screwed by someone he trusted. And it's like when I, for example, like if I'm in a relationship with an ISTP woman, a sexual relationship, she has to learn how to trust me. And that trust is so important, because by having that trust, it's proof positive that she understands that, as a woman, as a feminine woman, even though she's technically masculine from a nature standpoint, she's living my life. She's not living hers. She is in my life, and she's living my life. She is orbiting me. I am not orbiting her. But getting an child to be willing to accept that in this decadent Western society, it's extremely hard. And that's why ISTP women are oftentimes alone. They're 40 years old. They can't have children anymore, and they're just dog moms who are alone, and their FI demon is still so very entitled, and have these really high expectations that are coming from their expert intuition trickster, because expectations come from expert intuition. And what they really need to realize is that they don't actually offer that much in a relationship. What are they offering? sex. Well, you can have sex with anyone. And it's just so sad that to see the FI demon of an ISTP woman think that that's actually super valuable when it's really not. And then they're like, well, I can cook and clean too. And I'm like, yeah, but so can I. And I have appliances for that. What value are you actually adding? You know, are you helping me learn skills? Are we doing things together? Is there actually concrete proof or evidence that you can show for at the end of the day? Or are you just being entitled with your FI demon? And a lot of them can't really accept that. A lot of them just don't understand what that exactly means. And it's pretty sad. I wish they'd come to terms with that truth. The ISTP men certainly need to, and I'm not entirely sure that they would be able to. You know, I really think that they have a lot more to offer. They have a lot more to offer everybody. But as to whether or not they'll actually make that choice, who knows? And this is why, like, even in my coaching practice, I tell ISTPs, like, look, try to teach people. But people that you teach, yeah, while it will make you happy, that's your reward. It's your reward if you make people happy when you teach. But that doesn't mean you get to be entitled to them sticking around for you. You made the choice to help them. And if you're going to be transactional, then tell this person straight up, hey, if I'm going to do this for you, if I'm going to teach you this is what I expect in return. At least be honest. You ISTPs who claim to be honest, but then all of a sudden are covert contracting people by expecting them to owe you attention later because you've taught them a skill or you've done something. My cousin Mike never does that to me. Never. He never has. He never has. And it just makes me want to be even more loyal to him, because he allows me to be my own person, to have my own freedom of choice. And that's another thing about ISTPs, is that, like, when it comes to their freedom, there's another hypocrisy. When it comes to their own freedom, they will put it above everybody else in their life. They will put their freedom above everyone, to the point where the ISTP will become very controlling in any situation and controlling of any outcome. They become so controlling with their ESTJ shadow, like a taskmaster with a whip, because from their point of view, there is no guarantee that they're always going to have freedom of choice unless they're controlling everybody else in their life. That's the kind of ISTP everyone should actually, like, abandon immediately and get away from them, because they are actually being abusive. That's abusive. And a lot of ISTPs out there just can't really comprehend that they themselves are actually being abusive. But that is how abusive they are. And then they get so ragey when other people don't let them, other NI users especially, don't let them control them, because they don't realize how selfish with their freedom of choice they're actually being. I've coached a lot of ISTP women, for example, in my time, and almost every ISTP woman I have coached have all had abortions. It's sad. It's really sad, because they see that baby, they see that human being as someone who is taking their choice away, when the reality of the situation is they just don't want to live with the consequences of their choice that they made previously. Because women control access to sexuality. Women are the arbiters of the race propagating. They get to choose. Women's right to choose, right? So women get to choose if they're going to have sex or not, unless they're raped, of course, but that's different. But because they have that choice, why do ISTP women expect to have two choices, right? See, that's not fair. And it's really fucked up, and it's entitlement. It's FI demon entitlement. And I get to watch their FI demon sacrifice their own child for the sake of their own freedom. And this is an example of an ISTP woman controlling others, controlling the destinies of others, so that they themselves can be comfortable or know that they have a destiny themselves. And that's wrong. And they don't even, it's so wrong. I literally can't even deal with it. And as intriguing as ISTP women are, and as interested, in them as I have been throughout my life, it just boggles my mind. But it's not just the women. The men have a serious problem too. In my coaching practice, I've had to deal with ISTP men who are pressuring the women that they impregnated into getting an abortion to protect their child freedom. It's bullshit. Why do they get to be allowed to shirk all responsibility for their choice? Because they still believe in the dumb FI demon ideal of, hey, if I can make everyone look as bad as me, that means I don't have to improve. That means I don't have to take responsibility. And that is literally the biggest Peter Pan syndrome cop-out that I've ever seen. And you really only see that through ISTP hypocrisy. It's so disgusting. And that's literally what makes them bad people. And of course, you tell an ISTP that they're a bad person. They're like, yeah, I know I am. But you're just as bad as me. Or they will engineer entire social situations to prove to everyone around them that you're just as bad as they are, just so they can walk away confident knowing that they don't have to improve. Is it any wonder why ISTPs are not really as successful as everybody else in life? It's because they are worshiping their freedom. Their freedom is their idol, and they are committing idolatry with their freedom idol. When the reality is, they need to understand that they've been gifted with that child freedom, gifted with freedom of choice, not for their own benefit, but for the benefit of other people. That's the issue. And they've been given this great gift of being so tactical and able to unobligate themselves and escape out of any situation that they get into. But they only spend it on themselves, and they don't spend it on the benefit of other people. And that's another hypocrisy that they have. I am so triggered over that. It's just so ridiculous to me. I can't believe, this FE inferior type who struggles so much with being accepted is also the person who's taking the whip to other people and literally taking away other people's freedom so that they can protect their own. Wow. So entitled. Every single ISTP in my life, I have witnessed them doing that in some capacity, including my cousin Mike. Although he stopped doing that. He gave that up. And instead, he's just been committed to the people in his life, to his community, to the people that work for him. He is, quite honestly, the most amazing human being I've ever met. And I wish I was more like him. I really do. I really do. And I work hard to, go out of my way to measure up to his example, or even go beyond his example, because he's been such a big brother to me, a brother I never had. And in some cases, I've even been able to learn those lessons about how to be a man or be masculine, lessons that I should have learned from my father, but I actually learned from him. And I'm even here talking to you folks about this because of Mike's influence in my life. So learn from his example, ISTPs. And also, folks, as you're watching this, hold ISTPs accountable. Hold them to that big standard. It's not that I'm expecting them to give for the sake of giving all the time. It's just that if they really actually are honest with themselves and are aware of what they actually need in a relationship or as people, if they're actually honest about that, then why not? Why can't they be honest about that? Why can't they? Because if they're actually honest with themselves about what they actually need, when they're helping someone, they could actually ask for something in return. But if they don't ask for something in return, that's on them. Lost opportunity. And they cannot be entitled to that person's attention and start acting like that person owes them. That's not how life works at all. So, someone gives you attention, and yeah, you're helping them, but that doesn't mean, you give a man a fish, that's great, but you can't get entitled to them owing you for giving them a fish. You teach them how to fish so they can eat for the rest of their life. But that doesn't mean you're entitled to the fish they catch either, right? Just something your FI demons need to understand, ISTPs. Seriously. You guys are such big hypocrites, and you're just not even aware of it. So yeah, I think that in general covers the many hypocrisies of ISTPs. And I hope some of the anecdotal examples I provided can give you guys a standard from which to work for, or at least the people watching this video to hold ISTPs accountable to a better standard. Because, like, I get that in their life, especially with ISTP men, it is their way or no way. But the thing is that the real ISTP men are the ones who are willing to sacrifice their way for other people's benefit, especially when they're the ones who made the choice that created the situation to begin with, such as when the ISTP man gets a woman pregnant and all of a sudden there's an unwanted pregnancy. Maybe he should actually, like, be a man and take responsibility instead of shirking responsibility at every opportunity. It is disgusting, and that is, like, the worst thing about them. And they do it so pridefully that they're so entitled to that so-called right to freedom, when the reality of the situation is they have no right to freedom because they go out of their way taking everybody else's freedom so that they can have theirs. What kind of life is that? They're literally creating an eye for an eye situation. Those are the ISTPs that belong in jail. The ones who, like, take away other people's freedom in favor of their own. It's so disgusting. And I hope you, as an ISTP that are watching this, that you never do that again. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting this business, this enterprise. I really appreciate everything and giving me an opportunity to talk frankly about the 16 types in this manner. It means a lot to me, and I'm very thankful for all of you. And I hope my hugest hope, my biggest hope, especially with this particular lecture, is that all of us can together can help ISTPs learn from my cousin Mike's example and become better ISTPs that actually contribute to society, ISTPs that actually make the world better and improve people and make their communities better, make their families better, instead of being willing to sacrifice their family and their community and the women in their life, the men in their life, their lovers, sacrifice their lovers, right? So that they don't sacrifice their lovers for the sake of their own freedom. And if you're an ISTP and you're watching this and you're wondering why you're alone, that's why. That's why you're alone. You might want to fix that. So, anyway, folks, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys tonight.
After my silver soul, can you dig any deeper now?